Welcome everyone. This is Stoicon-X Orlando for 2020. This is our first annual event in the Southeast USA. And we're expecting a lot of people today. I'm looking forward to the presentations and to the Q&A that we'll have some time for afterwards. In general, for those of you who are new to Stoicism, I want to give you a brief overview that we are affiliated with the modern Stoicism movement. This means that we did request that from that group, we have requested to give this presentation today. The original modern Stoicism movement was founded in 2012 by Christopher Gill. And since then, other major scholars from around the world have joined that movement. Their goal is, in brief, to bring Stoic teachings to the public. This is very important because although many of those teachings have survived through over 2,000 years of history, we still need people to translate and to make it modernized. And of course, to emphasize those things that truly are helpful in the modern world. And also the people like Christopher Gill and others, we also have them writing new books. So that's a very encouraging part of the movement. It's also important to realize that in modernizing the ancient works, keep in mind that over time, they have been translated, that is, the ancient works have been translated by many different historians and scholars. And some of my favorites, which are translated on the internet and available as public domain because they're such old translations, those are pretty good. But some of the newer translations, which are not public domain, are available in book form. And so we really have those two options to go with when we are studying Stoicism. The major authors, I've already mentioned Christopher Gill. There's also John Sellers in London, Donald Robertson, who I think is from Nova Scotia, but he's traveling in Greece right now. Massimo Pigliucci, he's got the last name that's difficult to spell, but he's terrific in podcasts and articles, and he's based in New York City. And then there's Tim Laban, who is also a part of the movement, and he talks about other areas that instead of just the translations, he covers other areas of Stoicism. This is going to be our schedule today. We're in the welcoming part right now, and Brittany Polat is going to be taking the stage at 1:15. After that is Tim Iverson, then Donald Robertson, and myself. So we've got about 4 hours ahead of us. We're going to pace ourselves, and yet we're going to stay on time. I know some people who were busy today may only be joining us for part of this presentation. And so far we have 34 people. That's very good. The rules for today's event is most people, when they enter, they will be muted automatically. This is just so that we can keep a very clean presentation. Even later, when you ask questions, you won't be unmuting yourself. You'll be typing something into the chat window, and I'll read that to the presenter. Also, your video is optional. You can turn it on or off today if you want to save bandwidth. Later on, when a presenter is on stage, anytime during their presentation, you can use the chat window. And if you type something that starts with an exclamation mark, then I'll know that it's a question that you want to pose to the presenter. As far as other things, we're not having any politics today and no foul language, of course. This is a learning experience and we want it to be open to everyone. We're also going to stay on schedule, as I mentioned before. Okay. In brief, for those of you who are new to Stoicism, I will tell you that there are lots of metaphors that can be used in teaching Stoicism and about Stoicism in general. But the one that I like the most is Stoicism is like a doctor that allows you to perform a self-examination. Basically, you'll be examining your ideas and the habits that you formed in your life. Also, you may be able to identify biases that you've picked up along the way. And there are lots of tools that Stoicism gives us. There are literally hundreds of tools, but the main ones that attract people to Stoicism is the ability to manage stress and anger. That is, those negative things in your life. And the roots of CBT and some areas of psychology come from Stoicism. We also have in Stoicism the ability to overcome obstacles. And we don't just say this to ourselves like, ooh, I can overcome anything. But it's actually more of a rational thinking, a use of reason that allows us to overcome these obstacles because we know the tools for doing so. We can break things down into pieces, we can work with our friends, and we can just be a little bit more persistent in getting to our goal. Stoicism also offers us the gift of skepticism. So we don't just accept everything we hear. This was not only in an age of social media, but when the Stoics wrote it 2,300 years ago, 2,000 years ago, they still had skepticism back then. And one of my favorite quotes is Marcus Aurelius, who tells us to protect our fortress being our mind, because once we get bad ideas in there, we can make bad decisions. And finally, the something that Stoicism is famous for is called the dichotomy of control, where you realize what is in your control and what is not. That's one of the most referred to items in Stoicism. In fact, you may hear it in our speakers' presentations today. You'll also find, if you attend some of our meetings, this event today was sponsored and promoted by the Orlando Stoics, the Tampa Stoics, and the Minnesota Stoics. So I'm glad to have all of that, all of those resources behind us. But if you go to meetings, you will find that Stoicism is often compared to Buddhism and some other areas of thought like minimalism, American transcendentalism. It's because they do share a lot of ideas. And some of those things are choosing moderation or the middle way, also avoiding excesses. Yes, even 2,000 years ago, they had excesses, and there are some people who indulged too much in them. So that went to extremes. And also to refrain from judgment. The Stoics and the Buddhists also talk about how we need to refrain from judgment. So there's a lot of learning possibilities here. Expectations and attachments is another thing we'll probably be learning about today. And meditation, focus, and compassion are other areas that we share with other philosophies. And this is the important part, is when you study Stoicism or any other belief system, you may find that some appeal to you more than others. And so you should go with the flow, to quote a Taoist friend of mine. Go with the flow, find the one that suits you the best. The ancient Stoics, these are some names you may hear today. The ancient Stoics started with Zeno, and then there was Cleanthes and Chrysippus. These first three are known as the Greek Stoics. And the second grouping of three, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, they are known as the Roman Stoics. Now, we're very lucky that the latter three left a treasure of writings for us so that we can at least learn what the ancient Stoics were talking about. The earlier three, Zeno, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus, we know only of their works through fragments, which were recorded in other books through history. But most of their works, especially Chrysippus, who I'm told wrote 700 books, and they're all lost in history somewhere. Maybe a scroll still has to be dug up somewhere in Italy or found somewhere in an attic. We'll see what happens with that. These are some of the people we'll be seeing or hearing about today. Zeno of Citium, he'll be included in my presentation at the end of the day because he's the founder of Stoicism, and he began at the Painted Porch in Athens, Greece, in about 300 BC. Cleanthes and Chrysippus were these fellows. Seneca the Younger. This is the author of the book Letters from the Stoic and Dialogues of Seneca. two great works. Epictetus, we have two of his books today. One of them is the Enchiridion, which is known as the handbook to a lot of people. And also we have the Discourses of Epictetus. Now, luckily, he was not a writer, but one of his students, Arrian, was a writer and wrote down a lot of his teachings so that we can have it today. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his own diary, which we today call the Meditations. And all of these books that I've mentioned, by the way, you can look them up, you can Google them, and you'll find that most of them do have a public domain version that is free. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here because Brittany is starting in 5 minutes. Some of the takeaways that you'll get from Stoicism are being able to control your desires and encouraging your moderation better, overcoming obstacles, which I mentioned before, being more present. You know, we talk about mindfulness, but the tools that we have to offer in Stoicism may appeal to you, so that's worth investigating. And we also know how to reduce our negative emotions with different tools and encouraging skepticism. That's something I mentioned before. All right, so today we're going to get ready for Brittany now. I'm going to pause this recording and then restart so everyone can reach for your drink right now. I can't see all your pictures, by the way. I imagine some of you have a glass of wine next to you, and that's perfectly okay.